Hi there, I'm your host Clive Serkin, and welcome to the Unstuck podcast, where we're on a journey to help you get control of your work environment, get yourself unstuck, and perform to your full potential. My guest today is Natalie Shmulik, who's the founding CEO of the Hatchery and now serving as the Chief Strategy and Incubation Officer of ICNC, the Hatchery. The Hatchery, if you're unfamiliar with them, is a powerful initiative that brings together the innovators in a community, particular community on the west side in Chicago, and takes them on this entrepreneurial path. And if you think about what they've done, they've helped to propel brands like Farmer's Fridge, Metric Coffee, Think Jerky, Little Bucks, IO Foods, Taylor's Tacos. Those are the ones that come top of mind to mind, amongst a bunch of other wonderful brands. And the thing about Natalie in her role as a Hatchery and her team that is distinctive is that they go well beyond incubating startups. They really work to open up doorways for people who don't typically have a realistic pathway to scaling their ideas, not just because of the high capital costs and technical skills required and support, but really it's about access, simple notion of access. And in doing so, Natalie and her team are changing the trajectory of people's lives, literally. And more importantly, or equally importantly, or consequentially, as a result of that, strengthening the community in which they work. And this remit is rooted in the belief that innovation must create change that's sustainable and generational. So I asked Natalie to come talk about this model and what they're doing at the Hatchery and the journey to where they are today. And paint a picture of what happens when a group of people get together and refuse to allow a lack of access to get in the way of innovation. So, as always, I'm Clive Serkin. I'm joined today by my dear friend, Natalie Shmulik, and let's get unstuck. Welcome.
Let's do it.
Let's get
Thank you,
unstuck.
Clive. Thanks for having me.
It's always good to hang with you. Natalie, before we get into the meat of what you're doing and get under the surface, it'd probably be smart to get grounded in the Hatchery. I always make the assumption that everyone knows as much as I do, and I've been on this ride. We met a long time. I don't even remember when it was, but a long time ago we met, and so I've seen this journey and I'm familiar with the Hatchery. But why don't you just talk about the Hatchery, what it is, so we can sort of get grounded and then go from there.
Yeah, so the Hatchery is a nonprofit food and beverage incubator, and it really came out of a need that we saw in the community, in the industry overall. And the idea formed with the executive director of Industrial Council of Near West Chicago, Steve DeBretto, and the former CFO, Robin Lee Greiner, who of Axion, who both came together and really created such an incredible opportunity by just thinking of a solution to a problem that existed for a very long time, which was access to affordable production space, which is very challenging for any food and beverage entrepreneur out there, any big consumer packaged goods brand. Everybody knows it is very challenging, costly, time intensive to locate and build out a food grade space. And ICNC has an existing incubator called Make City, which has been around for over 50 years. It's one of the largest and oldest incubators in the country. It's kind of one of the best kept secrets, which isn't so much a secret anymore. But that facility is 416,000 square feet and houses 110 companies, startup companies that have grown within the space, that have grown out of the space. And those companies came to ICNC with a need to have a space where they could safely manufacture their goods and connect with a community of like-minded entrepreneurs. And over time, more and more food and beverage entrepreneurs were coming to that space, which was not a food grade production space. So it would be very costly to take this old plumbing foundry and build out a food grade space. Many businesses did it. They would take out business loans. They would invest the capital they needed to build out that space. But my goodness, that capital can always be served in so many other aspects of the food and
Right.
beverage business.
Well, and when you do that, right off the bat, you're on the back foot.
Exactly. Exactly. And this is where, Steve and Robin got together and said, there's got to be something we can do to help these businesses. And that's where the idea formed around the hatchery. And so I came on to really support the creation of what the hatchery can be and how the hatchery can best support food and beverage entrepreneurs. Because my background is all food and beverage. I eat, sleep, and breathe food and beverage. It's the best industry in the world, but it is so incredibly challenging. And there's millions of people out there asking the same questions, going through the same heartaches. And if we could find a way to lighten the load just a little bit by creating a safe space for these entrepreneurs, my goodness, would it change the industry? Would it change people's lives? And so we initially launched as a virtual incubator, and part of our goal was to first and foremost locate where the hatchery would be built so that our services would be best utilized. And when we connected with the city has always been a big supporter and advocate of the hatchery. The city of Chicago has always been keen on trying to make sure that these services and these opportunities were available to everyone. So we intentionally decided to locate on the west side of Chicago in East Garfield Park. And those who are familiar with East Garfield Park know the west side of Chicago oftentimes gets a negative connotation in the press. It's been an underserved community, underinvested. There's high unemployment rates, limited access to nutritious foods. A lot of news came out of some incredible advocates who came out and started to invest in the neighborhood because they found there were more liquor stores than they were grocery stores and access to nutritious foods. That's a big challenge. There's so many incredible residents of the West Side who have brilliant ideas, who are want to get out there, who want more of these opportunities. They just don't have access to them. And the intention of the hatchery was really to be for and of the West Side, where we could first support the local entrepreneurs who were illegally producing and selling out of their homes, and the incredible job seekers out there who want the opportunity to be able to work with these flourishing businesses. And so part of our community benefit agreement is to be able to offer affordable and free access to shared kitchen space. So we currently offer within our facility 34 hours of free shared kitchen use space per week, which goes a very long way. In addition to that, because we run out of that very quickly, we offer an additional 34 hours at 50%. So we built our 67,000 square foot facility. We opened our doors over 3 years ago now. We still consider ourselves a startup. We still learn. It kind of gives us an advantage point of we have to be nimble. We have to move at the same pace as the entrepreneurs we serve. But since opening, we've been able to support so many West Side entrepreneurs, see them be able to launch their idea to market. And I think something you said that's so important, Clive, is you talked a little bit about this idea of what spurs innovation. And to us, diversity is really what creates, that is the channel for innovation. We know this diversity of
Right.
concepts, diversity of people, diversity of thought. That's where change happens. And so
Well,
if we can just open the door, that's
I,
the best part.
a friend of mine, Steve. Sorry, I'm thinking you, Steve. Pete Dalcamaro was my very first guest. Had this formula, which I don't know if it was his or someone else's, but it was innovation. He had a formula: I equals S to the power of D, which is innovation equals stimulus to the power of diversity.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that's so much of the heart of what you do. But I want to talk about, because you sort of went through it. Like I remember, I got roped into this, and I mean roped into it in a very positive way, but through the mayor's office. And I was there not right at the beginning, but arguably earlier days before this beautiful building got built. Um, and what struck me, amongst many things, was this intricate. The only way I could describe it was this tapestry that was woven together of, the mayor's office and ICNC and Axion and the local alderman and this magnificent human being from, I forget her name. I'm so embarrassed, from the local West Garfield Park
Angela
community,
Taylor. Yeah,
Angela,
she's
right?
incredible.
And and I had this sort of two reaction. One was, oh my God, this is so complicated,
Mm,
weaving together these groups, which takes time
mhm.
because everyone has a different sort of agenda, and yet they all want the same outcome. And yet, as I reflect back on it, it sort of seems to me the weaving together of this tapestry, and I'm probably mixing metaphors, but you get the point, was as important as the outcome in terms of its ability to gain traction in the community and work. But is that fair? I'm just thinking back to those days where you were wiring together this coalition of people to create this special thing.
It absolutely is. And I think that is what has led to our success thus far, and what will hopefully continue our success and the success of our members is recognizing the importance of bringing everybody to the table. We needed different perspectives. We needed an understanding of manufacturing. We needed the buy in and support of city officials because we're going to be working with them. We work with the health and safety department. We work with BACP. Our members have to go through them to get their certification. The entrepreneurs that we're supporting, they need to see representation. They need to see that we and those around us and those who are participating in this initiative have their best interests at heart. We can make assumptions, but unless we have all of those people at the table who truly understand and truly believe in the mission, then we would not have been able to get to this point. So you're absolutely right. It is quite a dance to find who understands the mission, who needs to be part of the project, who can propel the project forward. It's every detail. It's the people who are designing the building. It's the people who are in the community who will be the entrepreneurs using the space. It's the micro lenders at Allies for Community Business. It's our workforce development team. It's our partners in the community. It's building a board that we developed with community leaders who understand what their neighbors need and who's going to be coming into the building and utilizing the facility. So you're absolutely right. And I think that's why we've seen other programs and incubators that have expanded very quickly into different neighborhoods and maybe haven't had that same success because there's so many nuances to the very neighborhood you're in. We get asked all the time, when is the hatchery expanding to this other city? I mean, I would love to have a hatchery Miami, right? Right on the beach. But the
I'll be working
reality
there.
is we have to understand the community that we're in, and we're still learning every day. There's still so much learning that goes into it, but really being embedded in the neighborhood and bringing the right people to the table, that's essential.
That's crucial because there's this sort of view of like just throw some money at a problem and it'll make it work, and
Yeah,
that's bullshit, right? It
right.
doesn't work that way. And I think it's so important. It's not just about the incubation of and support of these entrepreneurs. You also have a program that's um, driven by and given oxygen by Chef Bayless.
Yes.
Why don't we talk about that? Because that's another part of the equation of deep roots in the community that is tangible and legitimate, that's creating real change.
Absolutely. We have a remarkable workforce development team that is very focused on creating opportunities for job seekers and providing free serve safe training, job readiness training, job placement, HR support for some of these entrepreneurs who are hiring for the first time, and they're still learning how to build culture, how to find and retain talent. And early days when we were right in, even before breaking ground of the hatchery, Rick Bayless showed tremendous interest in this facility. Chef Bayless, for a long time, has been very much a driver of positive change in the industry and wanting to make sure that opportunities were created, that people recognized how hard people work in this industry. And we had connected to discuss this a culinary training program, which is now called the Impact Culinary Training Program. And this program, it takes place at the hatchery. Chef Bayless has a kitchen there. It's a training kitchen where students come and they learn in this intensive program. It's a 3-month program. It is completely subsidized. It is open to youth on the south and west sides of Chicago. Um, we started off with the ages of 16 to 24. Sometimes we'll take students that are a little bit older. But really, the intention is to introduce these students to sustainable pathways and careers, right? A lot of times we think of the food and beverage industry as being this, beaten down, you're just working 24/7, there's no way out, there's so much passion and opportunity in this industry that we've seen in the culinary realm. And so these students get to learn from top chefs. Rick Bayless brings a lot of his friends throughout Chicago. So they get to work with every kind of chef you can imagine, learning about different types of cuisines. They get knife skills. They get, I always say I need to find another word for soft skills, but they get all of the additional skills that you need to be able to successfully move through the industry and build a great career for yourself. And so we've had cohorts already graduate. This year, our first cohort of 2023 started. And these students not only get to go through this program, but at the end of the program, they're provided with a paid internship. And that internship typically turns into an interview where they are then hopefully offered a full time position with that restaurant, with that establishment that allows them to put their new skills to use.
And it's an extraordinary thing. I think there's a commonality, like when you talk about this program or the core of the incubation of the new business ideas. And there's this romantic view, like the old school view, which is like you get an idea and then you roll up your sleeves and you work like a dog, like grind it out, and you show grit and resilience, and it's 24/7, and commitment and energy, and just never let go, dog on a bone, and you'll succeed. And that's not true, obviously. I mean, yes, all of those things are required, but in my experience, the difference between success and failure is access, and support. And you look at the companies and people that have succeeded, generally, if they go back and they're truly honest and they're telling a true story versus a romantic story or a made for press story, they had a network of people around them who gave them the wisdom, the support, the guidance, the access, the door opening, that enabled them to take an idea to reality and success. And I'm not discounting hard grind, because that's a given, but that's not going to be the thing that gets you there. And, you know, in your community in which you're serving, these people don't have those networks. And so my sense is that's what you are at the hatchery, and that's what you bring to the table. Is that a fair assessment? How critical is that?
I would say that's a big part of it. I think that there are people who were not provided with access and they found a way to get to the surface, and it's remarkable. I mean, there's nothing better than hearing the stories from entrepreneurs and how they started, because you're right, it is very romanticized. Entrepreneurship overall is romanticized. I think we see entrepreneurs as being these, rebellious individuals who are kind of going against the grain and changing the world. And the reality is, it's, as much as we'd like to think that, it's not always that. And if you talk to a lot of entrepreneurs, they will tell you that a majority of their journey was suffering and painful and disheartening. It is very challenging to be an entrepreneur. I've experienced it myself. And part of our goal with the hatchery was that we would address those aspects of the industry as much as we address the technical components, because you can have as much technical support. Somebody can write out a document and say, follow steps 1 through 10. And, now you've launched a food and beverage business, and then now follow these next steps. And that's one piece of it. But understanding how to mentally prepare yourself for entrepreneurship, that's a whole other world. I was at a great conference at the Chicago Library with Art Spiegelman, the author of Mouse, which was one of my favorite graphic novels when I was younger. And my favorite thing, he had a student ask him, what should they think about? They were interested in getting into this world of writing and drawing and graphic novels. And his only response was, do it if you can't not. And so
That's
that
brilliant. Say that again.
resonated.
Say that again.
Do it if you can't not.
It's brilliant.
Brilliant. And
Absolutely
I
brilliant.
just thought, yes, that is entrepreneurship, right? And to your point, there are so many individuals who don't have access to those communities, to that support system, to that network. Even shared kitchens and commercial kitchens. We've studied this and we've spoken about this a few times, but a lot of times they're businesses themselves, and they have to be located in a high foot traffic area, so they tend to be in kind of this downtown core. Now, if you live on the west side of Chicago and you have to drive 2 hours just to get to a commercially licensed kitchen, that's 2 hours of your time. That takes a lot out of your business. And so just being able to access a commercially licensed space alone is a big feat, because you can't sell your products, you can't sell your concepts, you can't deliver your meals. You have to abide by the rules and regulations. So we did absolutely want to make sure that the facility we're offering and the services we're offering could best benefit the neighborhood that we're in. And there's so much talent on the west side of Chicago. There's so many brilliant ideas. So we are just honored to be able to provide that opportunity and watch these entrepreneurs grow, and to be able to connect them with some of these resources. There's so many resources out there, but it's really been eye-opening hearing from some of the entrepreneurs what the challenges are. And some of them as simple as, I don't get the emails about grant opportunities, or a grant is shared with me and then there's nobody to help me navigate through the application, or I don't understand what the next steps are. And this is a common problem that a lot of people are facing, is there's money out there, but knowing where it's coming from and how to access it, or speaking the language. This was a great thing. The team from Chai Fresh Kitchen, it's an incredible organization that supports previously incarcerated women, and they graduated out of the Hatchery, and they had said, sometimes we're meeting with investors and we have a great business model, but we might not look like the people you're typically investing in, and we might not speak the same language, but it doesn't mean that we don't have a good business going on. And so there's a lot of disconnects in the industry in this way. And I think it's important for us to A, have the conversations, and then B, work together to try to find these solutions, because a lot of them we weren't familiar with either. So it's important for us to learn about these challenges so we can work together to try to fix them.
And emphasis on the work together, because one of the things that strikes me every time I'm there at the facility, particularly when the trade show, the shows that you do and all that,
Mm-hmm.
what amazes me, not amazes me, but sort of gives me oxygen, is they all want to help each other. Like I listen. You listen to conversations, and you hear one entrepreneur telling you, "Oh, you need to do this, and you need to speak to them," and it's not like they focus. And I remember one of the people I know, she dragged me to take me over to another person. So you got to meet Clive, you need to talk to him, and so there's a collegiate sense of, yeah, we're all in it to succeed
Mm-hmm.
ourselves, but we need to help lift each other. And I was very struck by that. I'm not surprised, but it's good to see.
Yeah. We have a saying, we say always collaboration over competition. And that doesn't just apply to our members, who frankly teach each other more than we could ever teach them. We learn from those communications because they experience firsthand. I worked with this distributor. Did you like it? Did you not like it? I worked with this retailer. Here's the way to approach it, because I've been emailing them for, years, and somebody else says, "Oh, you don't stop emailing them. Here's the phone number." Hearing that direct experience, that's essential. That saves you so much time and energy. It helps you work with the right individuals, and it makes you feel as though you're part of this incredible community. So I think that really plays a big role, to your point. But it's not just about the entrepreneurs, it's our partners as well. We work with a lot of the big CPG brands, as you know, Clive. You came in through Kellogg, and we are so grateful for your support. And you were also very willing to have us work with a lot of these other CPG brands, with Conagra and with PepsiCo. And we have the same request of those groups as well, is that we should all be working together we shouldn't be looking for ways to kind of, back end somebody else or steal something or anything like that. And it's incredible because that's where you see the progress happen. It's a lot of these big companies and small companies are going through the same challenges. And if they can all just get together for a moment and say, "Hey, maybe we can solve this together," it's just going to help everybody in the end.
Well, and again, my feeling at the time, in my capacity as an executive at Kellogg, was this wasn't about charity. Never ever was, and I was quite commercial about it. And my I had sort of three things. One, if you help a industry innovate, you're going to be the beneficiary of it,
Mm,
even if it's not your innovation, because it creates dynamism in your category, and that's energy. And if there's energy in the category, if you have confidence in yourself, you're not worried, right? So helping your category innovate and be disruptive is the best thing you can do for your business. So that was one. Two, the humans in our company, when they go to the hatchery and experience what happens there, it's oxygen for them.
mm,
It's really good for them, and it takes them out of their comfort zone, takes them out of their predictable sort of routine in a corporate world, puts them in a different place, and they come back energized and better for it. And then the third thing is you creating talent in an industry. So why wouldn't you do that? It's just, for me, it's like, it's I think the dangerous thing is to view it as sort of like I'm writing a charity check. It's like, no, I'm writing an investment check
yeah,
here.
yeah.
And I think it's really important that more and more companies feel that, and a lot of them do, because you have some great supporters. You
Yeah,
know,
I couldn't agree more. I think that's our goal too. Is we're a nonprofit, we're a 501(c)(3), but we also have a responsibility to every entrepreneur and company we support to make sure that we're not giving them a disadvantage by having them feel that this is somehow a handout. This is not at all. And I think they all recognize it, is that in order for these businesses to be successful, they have to make money. They have to have a good idea. They have to be willing to work hard. We're just trying to reduce some of the barriers. We're trying to take away some of those barriers that prevented some entrepreneurs from starting in the first place. But it is important to recognize that we're not here to just have everybody kind of producing and then nothing comes out of it. We're here because we want these companies to graduate out of our space. Our goal is not to keep them with us forever and hold them
right?
in the nest. We would not be successful if they're not successful. And so these companies do have to continue to grow. They have to see that this is a real business. They have to succeed in the real world. And the goal is you keep growing until you graduate out of our space, and then you keep growing out of our space. And that is really essential.
Well, to help me with this, because, and this is probably more therapy for me than anything else, but in the world of in the world of ideas, when I'm around this environment, I'm sort of torn. On the one hand, my visceral sort of instinctive reaction is, when someone gives me an idea, I go, how can I help I have this thing about a butterfly, right? So it's like, this thing may be a caterpillar, but it's going to be a butterfly, and how do we give it flight? And so my first reaction is, how do I help make your idea work? There's another reaction that happens generally sequentially after that, but sometimes viscerally, is like, that's a dumb idea. Okay. Which is, okay. And it's not like a arrogant judgment. It's kind of like pattern recognition. It's like, I don't know, pick something. The world doesn't need another cookie.
Right.
Okay. The world doesn't need another bar. The world doesn't need another granola, for example. And so how do you manage? Because part of it is like, you go, well, how do you know?
Yeah.
Right? Like, this person has a dream and they have a vision for what they want to do. I mean, you can go down the list of massively successful breakthrough innovations and go, you could have probably said that to them, whatever that innovation was. So how do you navigate in your role, or anyone's role, as someone whose job it is to come give oxygen to people, but also you want to see them succeed? So there's a, like, giving oxygen and then helping them succeed, or helping prevent them from running into a ditch. It's a bit of a, there's a challenge there. Maybe I'm framing it up as binary, but I'd love your perspective on it.
Yeah, it does feel that way. The world doesn't need another cookie, doesn't need another bar until TikTok says you do, and then suddenly there's this. I mean, today it was so fun. Belgian boys launched their. I saw the announcement where they had launched their pancake cereal, and I love their products, and I'm so excited. But I'm sure a few years ago people would have said like, "That's crazy. What are you talking about? We don't need that." But maybe we do, and that's the thing, is recognizing that we're certainly coming from a lot of experience in the industry, but we're also consumers ourselves, so we are automatically biased, and I have to remind myself that a lot, especially when I talk to people who aren't in the food and beverage industry, and I'm like, how can you not like food? I don't understand how there are
Yeah.
people who don't care about food as much as how do you not spend 2 hours in a grocery store looking at packaging? But yeah, those people exist. So I think there's
Where
a
go
couple,
figure.
yeah, I think there's a couple ways that I approach it. My role is to put oxygen into entrepreneurship over a product or idea. And I always try to remember that, is my goal is to support entrepreneurship first, the idea second. And why I do that is because there are individuals with ideas that think it's a great idea, and that idea may never go anywhere, but the experience of being able to launch to market and learn for themselves is in and of itself a success. And I do spend time. I see every business idea you can imagine. I see hundreds of them. I've tried every kind of salsa, I've tried every cookie. And my goal is, okay, let's get this concept to market as quickly as possible. So I'm not the one telling you this will or won't work, but the power of numbers, the power of being able to use lean startup methodology and get it to market, that's where you will really be able to test the concept. Originally, when I've been teaching entrepreneurship classes and starting a food business for almost a decade now, and I saw entrepreneurs come to me with ideas that were then launched maybe 3 or 4 years later. And that to me that's the disservice. Letting someone sit on the idea that they think is so strong and brilliant and never launching to market and waiting until it's absolutely perfect, which it never will be. And we try to change the terminology at the Hatchery of how we define success. And success isn't necessarily being an RX bar. That is certainly a success. But success is learning the journey of an entrepreneur and finding out for yourself as quickly as possible what will work and what won't work. So we have a 6-month program right now where entrepreneurs start with us. They launch their idea to market, but we create that timeline for them, because then at the end of 6 months, you don't feel like everything you have is invested in this business and you can no longer separate yourself from it. In these 6 months, you get this incredible experience. And if that experience means you launch to market and it's not successful for whatever reason, right? Maybe consumers didn't like it as much, or it's a high price point, or you just realize it's not as fun as you thought it would be. That is still a success, because you discovered something about yourself. You discovered something about your concept, because there are so many people out there who have ideas and never even try it, never even launch. So that's really how we approach it. And usually we've seen really good success rate of entrepreneurs being able to explore their dreams, go on this entrepreneurial journey, and discover for themselves, hey, I tried it. It was a great experience, but not for me. Or I tried it and I think there's traction here. Let's continue.
Right. It's funny. It reminds me. I met this fantastic person, Veronica Lehman. We had acquired a brand that she founded, and I called her to introduce myself, and we were talking. And she said a lot of fabulous things that made sense to me. But the one thing that I'll never forget that she said wasn't about the business. She was talking about the genesis of the business, and she said something to the effect of, but I remember the phrase. But she was telling me a story about what prompted this journey was her daughter decided to become a vegetarian. I think it was vegetarian, not vegan, but that's not important. Let's say it's a vegetarian, and her daughter at a very young age wanted to be a vegetarian. And she said this to me, this phrase, and I decided to honor her decision.
Mm.
And it just like it blew my mind on a number of levels. One, as a parent, I'm like, I'm not such a great parent. I got to do a better job. But in the world of that's a separate issue. But in the world of sort of ideas and innovation, there's a there's a there's a requisite to honor the idea, right? To honor someone's decision and to honor their idea and help them make it the best it can be, and hope that it's successful. I know hope's not a strategy, but at least through that journey, become smarter about what it would take to make this dream come true. And it may not look in the end like it did in the beginning, but a big part of, I think, what you do is honoring people's ideas and honoring their choices to be an entrepreneur. And I love the way you describe that. We've never talked about this, by the way.
No, we haven't.
Um, to, but that, I think that's so crucial. We're coming up for time. Question for you on a practical level: what does help look like for you for the hatchery? Who do you want? Like, who do you want to come and help you? And what does help look like? Because like I keep forgetting, like I know the hatchery because I was involved in it, but a lot of people weirdly don't know it. And
Yeah.
I think if more people got to know it, they'd come help you. But what does the right help look like?
That's a great question. Right now, a lot of our goal is finding the right partners. There's no shortage of companies and individuals who are interested in being part of our community and supporting. But our goal is really finding the right partners who, again, we have aligned missions and values. But there's also, when it comes to entrepreneurs, one thing we also know is being an expert in a certain space is different than teaching an entrepreneur about your expertise. And speaking that language of entrepreneurship is so important, and being able to understand that audience and how to connect with that audience, but also how to make sure that the information you're sharing really is easy to understand and sticks with them. Providing information that they can take immediately and apply to their business and see results right away. We want to see that through every aspect of the supply chain. There's a lot of challenges with navigating through just distribution, working with brokers, working with retailers. There's so much that's changed in many ways, and there's so much that has become more difficult. Getting into a retailer, right? The dream that a lot of startup entrepreneurs had of, I want to get into Whole Foods, that's changed. The What Whole Foods used to be and what Whole Foods is now is not the same. And working with distributors isn't what it used to be. Working with brokers, there's so many nuances right now, and there's so many details. Understanding how to read a contract, making sure that you're not going to lose money from a certain opportunity because you thought it was the right opportunity, but nobody walked you through the steps on how much it was going to cost and how much time it was going to take. And for us, I would say finding those partners who really want to help best educate entrepreneurs so they can navigate through every aspect of this business and see success, because so many great businesses, unfortunately, fade away because there's all these additional barriers and challenges and lawsuits, and there's just so much going on. There's a lot of convoluted information right now, and we just want to make sure that we have the right information, we can provide clarity and the right education, and and funding. I mean, that's always
Okay.
funding, right? That's always
Never hurts.
number one reason, number one challenge that all businesses experience is almost always, financing and navigating that world. But it's something we do on a regular basis as well. Is the more funding we're able to receive, the more support we can provide these entrepreneurs. So yeah.
All right. Well, for me, the proposition, and I'll sort of end where I started. It's in everyone's best interest if you give a damn about the industry we're in, or I was in, um, and the city you live in. You have a selfish vested interest to ensure that organizations and programs like the Hatchery work. It's not something disconnected from you, something happening on the other side of the city, outside of your company. It's directly impacting your city and your business. And so my strong suggestion to everyone listening is to get on the phone. Don't overwhelm Natalie, but get on the phone and help the hatchery, because you'll be doing a good thing for yourself. So anyway, I would just say, as always, enjoy talking to you, my friend. Keep up the good work, and hopefully I'll be coming over soon to hang out.
I hope so.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Clive.
Appreciate it.
This podcast was brought to you by Screen Dragon. We break down barriers, make work flow, and unlock talent. Visit screendragon.com to see our software in action.